name is Ephraim Chaoneka. I'm the chairperson of the ZNCC Macroeconomic Committee. And at the same time, I'm the managing director of STF Capital. Last week, we had a very interesting topic where we were focusing on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange and the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, specifically looking at how these investment destinations have been performing and the outlook of that market, and also where we are looking to get other opportunities being registered, on that platform. And we had the honor of hosting the Chief Executive Officer of the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. We meet again today for another episode of Business on Friday. And today we are honored, and we are one of the very few privileged, individuals and organizations that are having to, meet, with His Worship, the Mayor of Harare. First and foremost, ZNCC, on behalf of ZNCC, we want to congratulate His Worship, the Mayor of Harare, for being elected to be the mayor. And we really look forward as business to working with you. I will introduce him properly, but for now, I will just touch a little bit on what it is that we want to achieve in this session. We want to, it's a meet and greet His Worship, the Mayor, by the business community. And at the same time, we also want to listen to him as he pronounces his vision and how it will align with the business community and the requirements of the business community in Harare. I was drawn to the website of the Harare city, the city of Harare, and just going through that website, it's quite interesting that there are several opportunities that are mentioned in there. If you have the privilege of visiting, the website of City of Harare, they speak a lot about opportunities that are abound. We've got opportunities. Just to read, just to appetize a little bit. They put that they have business opportunities and development models through joint ventures, build, operate, transfer, community management, and they speak about Harare farms, that they want to introduce modern, intensive, and diverse commercial farming operations at all kinds of farms, Harare markets, the home industries, and there are also opportunities for investment at Market Square bus termini, and also, other related opportunities in horticulture. So it's quite intense in terms of the opportunities that are there. But His Worship has just taken oath of office, and we don't know whether this still subsists. And this is an opportunity, for us to hear from the horse's mouth. And also what quickly comes to mind is also the Zimbabwe Human Settlement Policy as regards the government's call for partnerships in housing delivery. And this speaks to issues that interest business, which is the turnaround times for delivery of permits and other approvals that are supposed to come out of City of Harare. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me take the honor of introducing His Worship, Mr. Ian Muteto Makone. He was elected mayor of Harare following the last harmonized elections. And he has served as councillor for Ward 18, Borodale, since 2018. He has also served as secretary to Prime Minister Tsvangirai during the GNU period 2009 to 2013. He has also served as the head of elections for Triple C since inception, 2022. Has wide business experience. Has wide business experience in both public and private sectors, and he was the general manager of the Grain Marketing Board (GMB) from 1984 to 1988. He has also served in various capacities for the Manica Freight Group and as its MD 1995 to 1999. This is quite interesting because as business people, anybody who has served in some capacity in the business world would obviously have a feel of what the business expects, from them. At various points, he also served as director of First Mutual Life, Qualcomm Holdings, Africom, and Agribank. His worship is married to Madam Teresa Makone and has one daughter, Taneta, and two grandsons, Phoenix and Rise. Politics came along initially as a hobby in 1999 and then becoming a calling that has added a new dimension, to that rich history. Your worship, his worship, Mayor, the floor is yours. My name is Ephraim. Feel free to call me EC, for those that interact with a lot. Thank you. Over to you, His Worship.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Yes, thank you, EC, and thank you, colleagues. I hope you don't regret inviting me, but I appreciate the opportunity to interact with the commercial world, and in particular, ZNCC. Yes, we are new in office, but we are not new to the expectations of the residents of Harare, and in particular, the business community, with whom we hope to continue interacting for the rest of our term. We do not claim any knowledge of our own on what these expectations are. So I really appreciate the EC that you have drawn attention to our website and of the areas that we think are important in the city's interaction with the business community. We are largely non-business people. We come from a diverse background as councillors, some with a bit more experience than others. And there are 45 of us elected councillors, plus the 14 special quota, women's quota, making a total of 59 councillors.
Your Worship,
yes.
Your Worship, sorry if I can just interrupt a little bit.
Sure.
I've got a request here in the chat box. They are saying, can we kindly request to see your face, Your Worship?
It's too ugly.
Thank you.
All right. So it's just in case I was still in pajamas. All right. Yes, so we really are a diverse group. But my sincere hope is that by the time we come to the end of our tour of duty in this term through working closely with stakeholders, and in this case in particular, the business community. We can jointly sponsor the solutions that are so required by this city. Bring some order where there's disorder. Bring some water where it is in intermittent supply. Removing waste where it is deposited in undesirable places, and making the city more trafficable. Of course, not forgetting that this is a city of different groupings and different fortunes. We have the formal sector and the informal sector. We all have a claim to the cake that is called City of Harare. But each of us has a contribution to make. So if you ask me of what would be my personal wish for a vision that we seek to create, it is a city that is navigable, a city that recognizes our different talents, a city that recognizes that we got several people yearning to make a difference to their lives and to their families' lives. And we are a city that is waiting to rise. And it is our duty together to see it rising. Our current vision is coined as Harare Sunshine City, Vision 2025. Now, 2025 is pretty close. So we would have to work very hard for that sun to rise. And then it becomes truly a sunshine city. But let me touch on some of the contradictions that we have jointly got to deliver on. This issue of trust, which is in the way between our success and otherwise. All too often, and as I've received individual messages of congratulations for this appointment, an underlining a wish is that this city must make a difference to people's lives. And indeed, as a party, we promised that all our decisions would be underpinned by what we believe to be in the interest of the residents, nothing else. So where you see us deviating from that principle, I would hope that you is my mobile phone as well as a communication gadget. So I'll carry on. So it's about co-determining what that future is going to be and what that vision is. What are the obstacles in the way? Underlining this lack of trust are significant allegations of corruption. And it takes two to tango. So when we talk about corruption, it may be city officials, it may be city councillors, but it most certainly is some among us, the stakeholders. I was reading a survey report It's fairly old, but possibly still relevant, in which more than 60% of respondents in a survey in Zimbabwe admitted to having paid something in order to provide, to be given a service. Now, the city official or city councillors demanding it is guilty. The stakeholder, whether business or otherwise, who extends that consideration is just as guilty. So my first plea as I open these remarks is that let us exorcise our community of this demon called corruption. It does not do our image any justice whatsoever. I've just delivered an opening remark among our senior staff and councillors, a joint one, and underlined my remarks by saying we will not tolerate any corruption at all in this council. So I have my plea to yourselves, and now when I round off, I will come back to that same plea. But please help us exorcise this demon. And I will now turn to some of the issues that we believe are constraints, particularly to ZNCC. You mentioned the issue of turnaround, which is perhaps why some would be tempted to make a consideration in exchange for jumping the queue. We are going to be looking at it.
Let's make an arrangement to do that tomorrow.
Sorry?
Sorry, guys, can we mute? Can you mute our microphones?
Yes, I'll pay.
You don't know how to register.
Hello?
Hello?
You can
I
continue.
carry
You can
Yes,
continue,
yes.
sir.
Yes, I will. So we are also conscious that one other constraint that faces the formal business is that of vendors. It is true that when vendors occupy the shop frontage, it inevitably interferes with the smooth flow of business, formal business. And these are people that we expect to pay rates and all the other services. But let's dig a little deeper. And I've heard the call that we must rid the city of vendors. That's one approach. But we are also conscious that our economic situation is not sound. Our economy is informalized. So where do you draw the line? I'm inviting ZNCC to a round table to discuss this issue of what facilities be available to make it possible for that segment of our citizens to enjoy a decent life. It may be an issue about adequate facilities that do not exist today. It may be about demarcating areas where those activities be allowed. We're going through that thought process. And I would like it to be a joint solution that we develop between the city and the businesses that are invested in the CBD, in our residential areas, the shopping areas, because these things are happening all around us. And I think that we would be doing ourselves a disservice by pretending that there is an army of police and municipal police, ZRP, and other agencies that we can deploy so that the vendors disappear. I do not see them disappearing. So there is a solution that is still evading us, which we must jointly look at objectively. So that is my one appeal, because I know this issue is of serious concern to the formal businesses, particularly those that are in the CBDs and CBD and in the various shopping centers. Let me turn to the other areas that you highlighted, which you drew from the website. The city of Harare cannot possibly do everything. So the city of Harare would be open to proposals from business to tackle areas of PPPs or BOTs where it is not possible for city of Harare to do it by itself. The issues around the home industries, and you know very well that Glenview 8 is visited by fires every year, whatever the cause is. But that's a typical area that we need to look at jointly together so that the people that are transacting businesses in a place like Glenview 8 can do so knowing very well that we have adequate measures to avoid a fire breakout. Bus terminus is a response to the traffic jungle that is pretty obvious in Harare CBD. The security establishment is concerned with it. The city itself is concerned with it. The business community is concerned with it. But we tend to look at it through individual lenses. Let us learn, I hope, from the examples in other cities that you've been able to tame the traffic jungle in the CBDs and make the areas more suitable for the residents' shopping experience. The issue of human settlements is very important to us. The population is growing exponentially in Harare, but the land made available for that purpose is not growing any faster. We cannot increase that land without engaging with central government. So we would be looking to opening up discussions with them so that more land that is required for residential and commercial accommodation is made available, and that it is conducted in orderly fashion. Sadly, City of Harare's housing waiting list is in a shambles, and we make that admission. So we're going to be looking at the issues of the housing waiting list, so that once your name is on that list, you can reasonably expect that when your turn comes up, you'll get accommodation. Today, it is a question of who happens to know which the cooperative is more influential to get ahead and before the others in the queue. So once again, it's an area that we look to corporates, those corporates that would wish to have land allocated for the advantage for the accommodation of their staff. We should be able to look at those areas. And I hope we can do that fairly shortly. There is the challenge that we all face of people that make it their business to invade land, whether it's government land or municipal land, and it's chaotic because the services are not there, and we are then forced to regularize such land occupation. Your city had no option but to regularize certain of these settlements. And I hope that we will not have to do the same, and that the land that is required is made available. The city is enabled to acquire it. The city is enabled to service it, and then the city is allowed to make it available for those that wish to build their homes. I am assuming that a business will join hands with the city and in the Environment Management Authority, as I know they are also committed to protecting our wetlands. We repeat our call that those that are tempted to invade land that has been set aside for because they are wetlands, to think again, because it would be a pity if we had to invoke the authority that is invested either in EMA or in the city itself. Already there are significant signs that the original map of wetlands is reduced significantly. And in some cases, this was done with in cahoots with officials, even in the city of Harare, even in EMA, even in government. Let us together put a stop to it. Harare, the Mbare market could be a living example of a successful marketing operation for vegetables and other wares. It's a huge and teeming population, and I've had the occasion to be approached by our newly elected councillors from Mbare, and we're going to be talking to the residents in Mbare, because it is a sorry sight that we have sewers flowing out of residential apartments, and it's not a good thing. And here is a particular example of a possible relationship that we can develop with the private sector to sort out the mess in some of our residential areas. Mbare is a gateway to Harare for many people from our rural areas, and it is not an introduction to Harare for them. I hope that during this tour of duty, we can co-determine a solution for Mbare between those residents, the organized business, and the city of Harare. You talked about Harare farms. Yes, indeed. We have Harare farms, and we probably are not the best of farmers, but there are many excellent farmers out there. As the city of Harare, we should be prepared to openly listen to proposals, because after all, what is important are the results that we get from any joint ventures. And we expect that if you got a partner, a business partner, the thing that will draw them closer to you is the expectation for a reasonable return on their investment. It's an underlying principle which you will find your mayor very amenable to. The same goes with any other areas. Now, putting all that together, we talked about a navigable city. We talked about a city that is growing. We talked about a city which is clean. And indeed, talking about cleanliness, one thinks of the waste collection and disposal. One thinks about the water and the sewage disposal. We are not anywhere near where we should be. I make that admission. But the opportunities we can only go up. Currently, the city has got 28 district offices. But the decisions were all centralized. It is not conducive to the faster turnaround in decision making that you, Mr. Chairman, referred to at the beginning. So one of our first decisions that we've taken is to implement decentralization, where we've got to empower and provide capacity for our district officers. We want to see them operate in the interests of the residents in whom they are invested. And I want to see a portion of what you residents pay in either rates or water retained in your respective wards, so that we can upgrade the services that we currently are not providing properly. That we can then pay our attention, those at the center, to those areas which need a degree of support. But I'm very positive that each area can generate sufficient surpluses without overdoing it, which would enable us to co-invest with the business sector in the necessary infrastructure issues, such as the local roads, such as the water distribution system. Our current water distribution system was designed for a population of less than 500,000. And we all know how big we are today and growing. So we need to generate the necessary surpluses for us to invest in the critical infrastructure areas. Not forgetting that in the past, the municipal bonds were very attractive to the financial sector, very attractive, possibly in some cases more attractive than the government bonds, and probably equal to the agricultural marketing bonds, the AMA bonds, the bills. We can still get to that stage where the development of this city will be based on the trust that the financial sector has and the confidence that it has on how the city is being led. And this is within our grasp. So if by the end of our term of duty, tier 2 of duty, we have grown the confidence to a point where the city can float a bond which is well subscribed, in the full knowledge that it can, when it matures, the investor gets the promised return. When we get there, then the skyline will certainly be different. Right now, it is a torture to drive out of the CBD at the end of the day, let alone driving into the CBD in the mornings. So working in conjunction, I hope, with Ministry of Transport, we can progressively address these issues, and all for the betterment of our residents. I'd like to pause there, and I'll take any questions. But please bear in mind that our feet are hardly under the table. Your council has got 59 councillors, and only 16 of whom are from the old council. So you can blame all the poor service on the 16, but you must, I hope, promise to support and capacitate the new councillors and give them space to get their feet under the table, interact with the residents, listen to residents, translate what the residents are saying into meaningful projects that provide dividends to them. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for the outline of your policies. You know, obviously coming from the financial sector, or, you know, having a background of finance, I'm quite excited to hear you talking about city of Harare looking at, you know, opportunities in financial engineering, where the council is looking at fundraising for some of its projects. I'm sure that one will actually be, you know, a new initiative that, if taken on board wholly, will actually change the face of Harare. We also hear you that you have just gotten in together with your 59 councillors, 16 of them are, you know, retained, you know, from the previous council. Obviously, we will give you the space and also the support that is required from business, but that happens through the consultations, as you have alluded in your remarks, and I'm sure business will come through with suggestions on areas that they feel you also need to focus on. We also thank you for the invitation that has been extended to ZNCC, to a round table to discuss, you know, issues about, you know, decongesting the city with a special emphasis on, you know, what facilities can be put in place to accommodate, you know, the harmony between formal and informal, you know, sector. And also your open door policy on proposals from business. I'm sure you will outline to us, you know, the route that we have to take to get to your office with these proposals, because many times when we then want to operationalize these issues, there are certain offices that will then stand in our way, and these business proposals will then never see the light of the day. We also, you know, take note, you know, of your commitment to decentralize, you know, decisions, you know, across the 28 district offices that, you know, exist under City of Harare, as well as, you know, being surgically blunt on the issue of trust, and that you invest a lot of your time and effort to deal with that issue. So I think we'll then move to our second session, which is the question and answer. I would allow members to either post, you know, your question, you know, in the chat box, or you can raise your hand we allow you to speak to His Worship, the mayor. But whilst maybe members are preparing their questions, Mayor, I would actually, pose a question to you on the issue of power. If you look at the website of City of Harare, I think what is apparent there is that there is a talk about agriculture more, compared to other, investments. And I was looking at power production, especially given that we've got almost 1,000 megawatts in licensed IPPs that are supposed to, do power generation. But we all know that power generation is a land-hungry investment. And when I look at your land holding, I see that as an area, a quick win in terms of getting in bed with business to make sure that we address or contribute, to the power issues that that we have now and again. Maybe if you can just give a comment on that, and immediately after I'll ask, or maybe let me also give an opportunity so that you answer the two questions at the same time. Ms. Moyo, you have your hand raised. If you can fire away.
Yes, thank you, Chawaneka. And good morning. It's still morning. Good morning, Your Honor. Thank you very much for being available to meet with us as the business community. I've got two questions for you. The first one concerns the jungle that we have on our roads with billboards, advertising billboards. I'm one of those old-fashioned people who has always believed that a city should be beautified by its gardens and trees. But in recent years, we've had a situation where business entities through their advertising agencies are being allowed to spoil the ambience of the city by putting up billboards willy-nilly. What can your council do to control the rate at which billboards are being put up? Very often they are actually a distraction to motorists. We even have electronic billboards which just flash in your eyes as one is driving at night. So perhaps if you could explain what is happening there. And then with regard to the development of what would I call it? High dense use of properties in the city. We are seeing a number of dense use coming up on properties, whether it's in the residential areas or in commercial areas. To what extent is the council controlling that, especially since we have already a challenge with availability of water? And as residents and business operators, we are concerned that the pace at which developments are being done is actually worsening the water situation in the city. So those are my questions.
Well, thank you very much. So we've got three questions. Let me start off with the power, but in underlining my response to all of them is that this council is amenable to consult over all of them, be it on the power, on the roads jungle, the issue of subdivisions and densification of our city, because these are all policy areas on which we should have a conversation, not only with central government, but more importantly, with residents, and to take into account. On the power side, yes, it is true, the city has got some fairly large pieces of land where we've got cattle. But cattle and solar panels can coexist to a degree. And I talk not as an engineer, but it's just as a civilian. Certain proposals have been made, but I always shy away from proposals that come in a very haphazard manner, because you spend a lot of time going through one proposal, and then someone else 3 weeks later comes up with a generally similar one. And if you adopt one, chances are that you have fingers pointed out that there were brown envelopes, etc., which may or may not be true. So what I would propose, and I'm certain that my fellow councillors would agree, is that we take up these three, and there may be others which members of on this platform will raise, and make them discussion points. Let's have a conversation around the issue of power. We, as City of Harare, will be a major customer to a dedicated power generation for our pumping stations at Morton Jeffrey especially, and Prince Edward. So we're major consumers. Electricity is our third largest cost item after salaries and water. So we would be a very interested party to looking at how these assets, these land portions, can be used more productively for the city in general. And one of the issues would be power production. The question of this roads jungle. Yes, sometimes you drive into the city in the morning and it looks perfect, and when you come back in the evening, this big thing is hitting you. And I agree with Ms. Moyo that it is destructive. It could be contributing to some of the accidents taking place. So we must take a close look at the question of billboards. The density of billboards that is allowable, and the shapes and sizes in relation to the traffic, to our traffic movement. I could not agree with you more. But let's have a conversation around them. And that conversation is not confined to the city of Harare only, because much of the I don't want to use the word nuisance, but let's loosely call it much of the nuisance, yes, to the ambience is on the major roads in and out of the CBD, because those are the attractive roads. But we don't own the arterial roads. These are owned by the Ministry of Transport. And to a certain extent, we actually hardly ever administer even the approval of the billboards. So we must have a joint conversation with, I think, ZNCC, Ministry of Transport, and ourselves, and develop a policy position which is can be formally adopted and then implemented. The question of densification in relation to the amount of or the services, the infrastructure that exists is equally important. I'm aware that there's a general central government policy position on densification it is somewhat just come on us because the city, as I know, is not formally taken a position on densification. And we must have a conversation with the property developers, with the real estate sections of your organization. And let's obtain expertise from elsewhere. I'm councillor in Borodale, where the stands are a lot bigger than in most areas in the city today. And we have a larger number of applications coming in now for people wanting to subdivide their land. If they're on 7 hectares and they want to subdivide it into smaller plots, on the face of it, it's good, and it's their land, it's their right. But you're right that there's only so much water infrastructure available. And when you increase the population size, it's bound to impact on the availability of water to everyone else. So maybe the solution is not just of denying subdivisions, but the solution might well be to let's increase, develop the water infrastructure consistent with our projections 50 years from now of the water requirements of the city of Harare. So it's that complex, and I would hope that the engineers among us will respond to our invitation to roundtable discussions, which are necessary to input into the final decision in these areas. Let's not ignore the fact that the demand for commercial properties in what was previously domestic only land is not going to go away. So our city planners would need to be seized with areas of mixed development, and the enterprise corridor, for instance, which has been put on the table, is not going to go away. And in many cases, you could argue that the latest shopping center, Highland Park, it is making a difference in the community, but the traffic through that section is a nightmare. But there's a demand for that service. So I think we must not shy away from the painful discussions that must take place, and we must involve all manner of stakeholders. People that are already invested in properties in the area, who may feel that their property values are threatened, et cetera, et cetera. And those that say the future is not quite in 7 hectare plots in areas close to the CBD. I think there are a lot of areas that we can learn from where these things have been considered before. So we're not reinventing the wheel. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, for the responses. I think now we've got two that have raised their hands. But before I give them an opportunity, just a special welcome to our president, the president of Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Mike Kamungeremu, and a special welcome also to the deputy president of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, as well as our chief executive officer, Mr. Mugaga. I'm sure they will have one or two things to say, but for now, I'm just welcoming them. Can we give an opportunity to Ms. Teresa Nyava first, and then we have Mr. Timothy Tafumane to fire away. Ms. Nyava? Maybe Mr. Tafumane, if you can bring your question.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes. And visible too.
Do you want to see my ugly face? All right. Through you, Mr. Chairman, mine is not going to be a question, but it's just an inquiry to just find out from His Worship whether in their planning they have also considered refurbishment of our community halls or cultural centers. You know, we have problems with our youth, and the main cause why we are having problems with our youth is that there is lack of entertainment. Those community halls were established to make sure that the youth around those communities can have somewhere where they can gather, whether they want to do sculpturing or they want to do music or even watching films. So I just wanted to find out whether there are any plans in place to make sure that our community halls or cultural centers are going to be refurbished. Right now, they are in a state of serious dilapidation. And also, if not, is the council going to avail spaces to have those cultural centers or community centers established? Thank you.
Or do you want me to take?
Let me check with Ms. Teresa Nyawa if she's connected now. Ms. Nyawa? Okay, she's asking me to unmute here. Maybe my team from ZNCC, maybe if you can assist to unmute here. But let me also read a question from Dadiraichi Kwete. Your Worship, my major number one concern is the scarcity of public toilets for citizens. We are kindly requesting for more user-friendly and free toilets across the city. That's a question that is directed to you, sir. I'm sure you can attend to those two, while we try to work on the technology with Ms. Teresa Nyawa.
Thank you, facilitator. Mr. Tapumane makes a very valid point. Yesterday, I met with representatives from the arts festival, which includes theater in the park, and one of their special concerns was that, unlike what happens in other domains, is our city, even lagging behind Bulawayo, has neglected the development of our cultural heritage and many other exploits, and I agreed with them. So this question is very pertinent. Bear in mind that these social services were previously funded out of the beer levy, and the city was invested in many beer halls. The city was a special relationship with the brewing industry. But over time, whether purposely or otherwise, we have licensed other premises to sell alcohol, and our beer halls have become literally insolvent. I use the word advisedly, and derelict in many respects. Before we even talk about Mayam Sodzi Hall, Stoddard Hall, and several of the swimming pools that were useful facilities for young people. So yes, we are very much alive to that. In the previous council, I chaired a special committee on referral marketing, and whose finding was that the city has got no less than 85 such beer halls, occupying significant pieces of land throughout the city. Because the revenue inflows from the sale of traditional beer had all but evaporated, because I can go with my mates to the nearest bottle store and enjoy a beer and a braai, which this has made our beer halls unsuitable. So to the extent that people leasing those properties, however noble the original intentions were, have ended up subletting, and many of them are tuck shops today. So those were our findings, and we have made certain recommendations which the current council must work towards. But the bottom line is that these are pieces of real estate whose original intention was realization of a return for the development of culture and the spaces that Mr. Tapumane refers to. So I don't think there will be much objection at all in sticking to that original intention, that proceeds from the exploitation of these assets must be devoted to improving our social services, particularly the cultural centers that you referred. So yes, we are pretty much, we agreed on that. There's no question about it. We must then be engaging with the local communities, and it's amazing what they will give as their priorities, which may or may not be different from what we think intuitively. The public toilets is very much on our horizon. Whether we can continue to provide that service completely free pretty much depends on the size of our social welfare pocket, which at the moment is very small or non-existent. So I think it's a discussion that we must have. We have the toilets in the CBD, which have been literally privatized, and it's a good toilet experience to go in them. But when you go to the supposedly free toilets, it's not a pleasant experience. So we're going to balance between a pleasant experience, which costs a little bit, and a not so pleasant experience in ISO, for that matter. Like I can cite the example of the one toilet on the corner of Kenneth Kaunda and I think it's Cameron Street, if I'm not mistaken. It's not a good thing to visit. And we're going to be looking at those public toilets. More are actually required. But we must then just choose the priorities where we're going to start. I hope that answers the two questions.
Thank you, Your Worship, for those, the explanations and the answers to the questions. I'm also waiting for more questions in the chat box. And I just wanted to touch on something, Your Worship, with your permission. You did speak about, when we spoke about projects and their submissions and consideration by the city of Harare, and you made a comment to the effect that there are times when these projects come haphazardly, you are considering one and then the next comes. I would want to think that maybe we don't know the architecture of your committees. So I'm not too sure whether you are at liberty to avail to us the architecture of your working committees. Take, for example, business has got a proposal. Where do they go? And I want to believe if there is a committee that is tasked to look at these proposals, as part of, as they discharge their duties, I'm sure we have an orderly way of submissions and an orderly way of considerations and report backs on the project. Maybe if you can just advise us of the architecture of that. Take that as question one. We can move to Miss Nyava now. If you fail to come through, maybe we then have to go to the chat box. And after Miss Nyava, there is another hand. The name is Zoom user. I want to believe maybe he's from Britain. His name is Zoom, and his name is user. If he can also profile his question.
Thank you so much. I'd like to acknowledge you, the coordinator, and thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Teresa Nyava, and I'm from Sanitary Aid Zimbabwe Trust. I'm a menstrual health and hygiene management enthusiast and advocate. So for me, my question would be also on public toilets. So in this angle, I have seen a lot of women queuing for those public toilets several times whenever I get in town. Most of these women have babies on their back. So most of the times they can't use the public toilets because there are just so many. And probably in the middle of the queue, we realize that most of the times when there is no longer water in the public toilets, then the toilets are closed. So I have been observing these quite a number of times. I've realized that sometimes the toilets are even closed completely, and there's probably they write like a notice to say no water, no use. So people cannot access the public toilets. So basically, that's actually a challenge in itself. And I actually wanted to know if there are any plans in terms of making the public toilets better, in the sense that, one, women, if we can have more public toilets, which was addressed, and I'm really grateful. Also, the other question was to ask, just to comment in terms of the public toilets, may they be female friendly, because most of the times when I'm talking from a menstrual hygiene perspective, when women need to change to use the public toilets, there are a lot of issues involved, inclusive of changing their menstrual products, and it's very difficult if those public toilets are not female friendly, because it makes their life hard. For instance, the toilets do not have hooks on the wall. Then it becomes very difficult for me I need somewhere to just put my handbag. Usually these toilets are very dirty. I can't even put my bag down to get my sanitary pad to change my sanitary. Also, I have probably a baby on my back. Then it becomes very, very difficult. Also, I've realized that the long queues, they do not have, it makes it difficult in terms of dignity of women to be able to access female-friendly facilities. And then lastly, I've realized that these public toilets are closed earlier, of which we have people like vendors in the streets. We also have homeless women and girls in the streets. The moment they are not able to access these public toilets, that is when we end up seeing used sanitary everywhere in the pavements. That's where we realize, like, now the disposal of these sanitary products is done in a wrong way. Probably it's because the toilets are actually not accessible. The vendors come in town late in the evenings. and the toilets are actually not accessible, they are closed already. Can something be done? Can that be put into mind, just to be able to make sure that all women can be able to access the toilets? Thank you so much.
Well, let me start off with the last question, which I'm glad that she's been very specific in terms of the requirements of women, and especially women with babies, and the sanitary requirements. I can undertake that it's going to be to feature in our program for the first 100 days. And what I would like to suggest is if Ms. Nyawa would send us her contact details, because she's gone into some of these issues in a lot of detail, and we could benefit from a discussion with her, and she might bring along in other persons, so that we have a comprehensive solution to the issues that she raises in making these toilets more user-friendly to women with babies, and of course the sanitary issues that she raises. So I would like to make that suggestion. But otherwise, in relating to the question you raised, Mr. Facilitator, of the committees of council, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to advise. We have 10. A council works on the basis of committees, and we have 10 of them. And if I leave out one, you must forgive me. But we have a committee to deal with finance, so it's Finance and Development Committee. And we have a committee to deal with audit issues, so we have an audit committee. We have a committee to deal with the environment, and we call it the Environment Committee. And we have a committee to deal with business. So all the issues of a business nature get directed to that committee for consideration. We have recently introduced a new committee on disaster management and planning, so that is another committee. In the event that we have a disaster, how do we manage it? The current one was made necessary by our shortage of trucking capacity for compactors to remove waste from illegal dump sites. So it gives the leeway for collaboration between a council and other national stakeholders, such as EMA, Ministry of Transport, CMED. And so these are mechanisms to give effect to the responsibilities of council in several areas. We've got a committee on the information and publicity. We have a committee which deals with oh no, yeah, I just lost that. So anyway, we've got 10, and what I'll be very delighted, Mr. Chairman, to list all our committees for the information of members. So what would happen in essence is that if you've got a proposal, it is written and directed to the town clerk in the city of Harare. I think the address is listed on our website. The town clerk then decides on which committee it is to be routed. It is to do with straightforward environmental management issues, to go to our environment committee on the environment and public works. If it's to do with a business proposal or a project proposal, it would, in the first instance, go to that committee. But the committees work the dovetail, because a particular proposal will have considerations of the environment. It will have considerations of just sheer business opportunities for the city of Harare. have considerations of any other issues of interest to council. So that is how it is rooted. What I was driving at was that that given, I hope that my colleagues will agree with me that if we're a proactive council, we will know that the issue of, give a loose example that was given here, of power generation, and that we know that there are several licensed IPPs. What better way than to invite for proposals so that the issues of the IPPs for say solar generation for the city of Harare are considered in an orderly way. That is what I was trying to drive at. Because we can spend a fairly inordinate amount of time considering one separately and then another separately. The end result is that we might end up with people with favorite potential service providers, and that is not good for council. We want to move away from that. Another example is the city has got a dwindling stock of its own land. But the city has not published its stock of land. And the land bank should, in my opinion, not be a secret document, which is only available to a favored few. We can kill many birds with one stone by just ensuring that this information is in the public domain. That if council decides that a piece of land can be made available, either on lease or for sale, then it is publicly put on sale or for lease. So our land alienation policy, I hope, will receive considerable consideration by the council, and that we can have a process that is transparent and that is beyond reproach. That is what I was insinuating. And you teased me, and I had to be a bit more open. Thank you.
Indeed, Your Worship, I teased you, and thank you for that response. I am timing to finish this session at 12:30, so we've got 9 minutes left, and I will leave the 5 last minutes to my presidium if they have got any comments or questions that they want to proffer, and that includes the Chief Executive Officer of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Chris Mugaga, as well as the President, as well as the Deputy as well. But before we get there, and if there are any members, we still have 5 minutes to proffer our questions or areas where you may need clarity. So I've got in the chat box, I've got one from Bothwell. Are there any plans to help legalize residential areas such as Ichewo Kunze, Caledonia, etc.? In the past, we lost some investments due to Operation Mrambachina. Kindly assist. That's the first one. Okay, I see Mr. Mugaga has also put his in the chat. Greetings, Your Worship. I've got few concerns. Number one, the City of Harare billing system said to be chaotic and costing the council in lost revenue. Source, what steps are you taking to fix this? Number two, do you think your parking fees in CBD and your parkades are friendly if you compare with your regional peers? And in the same vein, if you can disclose the shareholding structure of who runs the city parking business. The last one, I think, is an answer to the invitation that you extended to Madam Nyaba, where she says, "Thank you, Your Worship, for acknowledging the issue of female-friendly toilets as part of your 100 days agenda. We are open to have further engagements with your esteemed office as per your suggestions." And she has left her contact details, which we will gladly forward to you, Your Worship. Those are the questions, Your Worship, if you can, attend to those.
Sure. Regarding settlements such as Caledonia, these are settlements that arose in a most unfortunate manner. But it was in response to the absence or the inadequacy of land. It has not just happened in Harare or in Zimbabwe. In several other countries, Peru, I'm aware of. The bureaucratic nature of administering the land applications has forced residents to move in and occupy land. And we have been caught in that web in Harare. So our response initially was to drive them off, and we said they're land barons, whatever terminology you can choose to. But underlining it all is that there is land hunger, and we do not have responsive administrative systems to ensure that land is surveyed, infrastructure is provided, and land is allocated in a timeless manner. This is where we want to go. But an intermediate step has been to recognize that a house that is already built and then demolished is a waste of natural resources. So there's a process of regularization which has been acknowledged, which I pray that it doesn't become the norm going forward, that we, the council, working with other stakeholders, can institute the necessary measures to avail of additional land that's required. And I know some have argued that, no, it's not additional land, but it's building upwards in terms of the principle of densification. But let us then at least agree as a nation that this is where we're going to go. And then to ensure that our systems in council are geared to do so. We will play our part in that regard. So we've had to go for regularization in Caledonia and other areas, which at least then means that a person who is occupying a piece of ground, however they did it originally, we're drawing a line in the sand and saying you owe intrinsic value due and payable to council. So at least as and when that is paid, the council cash flows allow us, and we can then put in services that are necessary so that we don't have this haphazard building of houses without roads, without water and other services. So that is the issue around legalizing it, but it's really legalizing what has been illegal, and that's the unfortunate part. And that in part also answers to the comment from Mr. Mugaga regarding our chaotic system. We really are very strongly urging our city of Harare officials, where I was developed, which was in the public sector. We had a system in GMB for buying a pencil and a procedure for it. where you followed that procedure religiously, you got your pencil on time and at a fair price. City of Harare has had these systems, but somewhere along the line, by error or design, there has been a lot of cutting of corners. We're currently going through our induction of our councillors, the new councillors in the main. And that is the strongest point I'm making to them and to the staff, that we're moving back into the systems era. It's better to work on it with a bad system than to work without a system at all. And sadly, this is where we allowed ourselves to slide in. I can give you a personal example, which I'm using for my talk during the induction, where I'm making a session, and if you want to seed an asset anyway, it costs you money to do so. In this case, this was seeding, making a session, which cost me $200. So I paid $200 US dollars for that session. All the paperwork was done. I got it, fair enough. Except when the receipt came in for that $200, it was in Zimbabwe dollars, RTGS. I said, but I paid $200 and I expect a receipt for $200. And what's more, I expect that the receipt has got a stamp from City of Harare. That particular one did not have it. So the system was there for receipting, but someone along the line decided that it was too much trouble to put a stamp in it. Somewhere along the line, someone must have decided that no. This mayor does not really, is not financially astute, because he could have gone to the parallel market, bought these RTGS and paid what is effectively his session at a significant discount. So, these are the things that we're going through, and we really are aging the business community in the meantime, residents as well. And it takes two to tango. And if we're going to get out of this cul-de-sac, we are all going to say corruption no more, no further at all. And you wanted to know who owns city parking. City parking is owned 100% by City of Harare. And it's possibly something that most people don't realize. So it's a management team, but the ownership resides in City of Harare. We must be looking, our business committee will certainly be in the next 100 days, be reviewing the share of the revenue that is appropriated to City of Harare in relation to city parking's requirements for future investment in relation to its cost structure. So we're going to be looking at it. There's no outside investor at all. And if I left out another question, Mr. Facilitator.
Thank you, Your Worship. You attended to the questions. I thought you were going to skip the shareholding one, but you touched on that. It looks like I had Zoom user. We had not given you the opportunity. And whilst you prepare, there's another question, Your Worship, from Mr. Kudamatari. The issue of wetlands. What plans are there to protect wetlands? We have seen developments coming up on land previously designated as wetlands. Does this mean council sold these wetlands to private developers? I'm sure we can have Zoom user.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Your Worship, on your ascendance to this office. And we appreciate you taking your time to come and, spend some time with us. May your term be blessed with the success that it deserves. We are behind you. Mine is not a question, say, but a suggestion, good say. I think there is need for rigorous training and extensive, retraining of our municipality police. You can see that the folks are doing their level best, but the shortcomings are still very visible to every citizen. I think also, besides training, there is also need for adequately equipping them so that they help to create the safe environment that we desperately need as a city. My name is Tinashe Mtarisi, and not Zoom user. Sorry about that. That's my contribution.
Well, I've noted the name. Please note that our policy on wetlands is very clear. Preservation of wetlands. But I'll be the first one to admit that there has been a lot of encroachment into significant portions of those wetlands, including the one which I understand is called Ramsar status. And including areas where the courts have ruled in favor of preservation of those wetlands. But people still do it with impunity. I don't know where they get this courage. But it's like chasing our tails. My strong appeal is that while we do our part to expose and remove those that we can, I would like to see a more active population or residents clamoring for the preservation of these wetlands. We're going to look to what measures we could take, including demarcation, including fencing them off, which is for Harare will be very costly business. But we might have to devote to that. You wake up one day and the day before is good, and the next day someone overnight has been had a bulldozer right on the edges of a river stream, and you wonder what we're thinking. So I think this is a joint effort for all of us. I will play our part and to remove them before they get too far. And only this morning in Heathcliff, an area which was reserved for it's a community garden, which means there are no significant developments to be allowed there. A team is in there with already marking it out for residential plots, and we go to like chasing our tails, getting rid of them. We'll do it, and I'm sure, but if we're working together, we can succeed. The need for training of municipal police, I couldn't agree with you more, and equipping them. But now, on the latter point, as far as equipping, please understand that the municipal police have no arresting powers. So it's a conversation that we should perhaps be having with ZRP, and in terms of the relationship between municipal police and the national police, and maybe going further down the road. In other domains, your municipal police have got those powers, and only revert to the other security establishments for backup where as the need arises. So yes, I've taken note of the need for training. It is true. Some of them are not giving us a good image. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. I'm sure I can just give some minutes to the President. Any questions, any remarks that you want to put across, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Your Worship, congratulations. I think our chairperson for Harare branch, Mr. Mtarisi, has already indicated that you have got our support. When it comes to Harare issues, I subordinate myself as a member to his office. Probably what I can request or inform you, Your Worship, is that our CEO and the team will be in touch with you. Please try to assist us. We need land to build the new ZNCC head office in Harare. I'm sure you'll be able to assist us. We appreciate your time, because what we value so much is the opportunity for our members to ask you questions directly. So all the questions that we had, they used to be pushed to our offices, and we are happy they had an opportunity to interact. And I hope this will not be the last one. We have more sessions from time to time whenever there are matters that need to be addressed. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much on that note.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much for that. Not sure whether, Your Worship, you want to respond to that before I put a cap to our discussion.
I have made a note about the ZNCC head office. We can have a discussion.
Definitely, we will be paying a courtesy call to your office in the shortest possible time. We will come through for that courtesy call. What's left is to thank you, Your Worship, for gracing our Friday business with the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce. And I also want to extend a special thank you to all the participants, ZNCC and non-ZNCC members. Thank you very much for all your comments.